morning, welcome back. This is Daybreak and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Will sample your feedback here in the course of the broadcast. With me in studio on my far right is Dr. Makali Mulu. He is the lawmaker representing Kitui Central Constituency and a member of the National Assembly's Budget and Appropriations Committee. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you, Dr. for your time.
Thank you.
What a time to have you here on the broadcast. At the center is Franklin Mukwanja. He is the Executive Director at the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. Yesterday at the heart of the events at the Nairobi Central Business District. Good morning, Franklin. Good to have you. And on my immediate right is the lawmaker representing South Mugirango constituency and the National Assembly's Chief Whip with us, Silvanus Osoro. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Let's first begin with events which happened yesterday, and starting off with the parliamentary group meeting at State House, later the protest, and then the parliamentary session in the afternoon. First, Franklin, coming to you, concessions or reason, which prevailed?
First, let me appreciate the patriots who showed up yesterday in their form and shape of all ages to demand for their rights. Secondly, the National Commission for Human Rights and the Defenders Coalition, who were able to work out to release quite a number of those ones that were arrested. I think we must, as a democratic society, selfishly guard the values that we have bestowed ourselves, the freedoms that we have as enshrined in the Constitution.
Okay.
I think yesterday what I saw, and body language is very key, what I saw was a panicky government. And whether it is concessions or reasons,
yeah.
For the first time, a president who is very outspoken, invited to the mic, said no. That was a concession that would want to add on this. Said no, that that is enough. There are sufficient reasons to believe, in my view,
yeah.
that the parliamentary group meeting by the ruling party
yeah.
was largely tactical, to try and deflate the demands and the tensions that were out of the, finance bill. And if you look at the statement and the final sentiments of the majority leader, that now those ones who want to occupy parliament and want to be on the streets,
yeah.
you have no reason to be there. So the appeasement, in my view, did not happen. The tactical, and we have been around for a while
yeah.
To understand the political maneuvers of the ruling party represented here by Honorable Osoro, that they're very politically calculating to ensure that at every time their plumbers are working on the valves to release the pressure. And yesterday, in my view, it did not work because the 2022-2023 finance bill was sort of a mob justice approach. We have the numbers and we will bludgeon it through. The citizens wailed, the opposition politicians made their attempts,
yeah.
and the mere numbers of the ruling party overwhelmed.
Okay.
And this pressure has been piling, and it's also quite a strong warning to the opposition that it's no longer about Honorable Raila Odinga and the colleagues in the opposition
yeah.
To speak for Kenyans. The younger people are
yep.
saying we are taking this, the destiny of our fate in our own hands. So whether reason or concession,
yeah.
I saw a panicky government.
Yes.
I saw some tactical maneuvers to try bring in a parliamentary group at the opportune time to try and deflate the momentum of the protesters.
Okay.
But clearly, Kenyans want things done differently.
And we'll talk about how this could potentially influence other areas of governance and future elections, given that they also said yesterday, please, Mr. Odinga, stay away from this. This is our affair, and we are taking the bull by the horns. Coming to you, Honorable Silvanus Osoro. An early morning yesterday, parliamentary group meeting, you, of course, had been conveying the message to members of the bicameral parliament. What was the mood music at State House in the meeting chaired by the head of state?
To start off, the events of yesterday and the release of the presser and everything that even happened yesterday is a culmination of a process. There was nothing panicky about anything yesterday. Lawmaking is a process. The executive made a proposal on expanding a tax base. The proposal was brought before Parliament. The Finance Committee had a timeline to which they had to accomplish that. You'll remember that I did communicate to members of a PG meeting last week that was to happen last week on Monday. Way before this online protest had started. It was way, way, way before. And that had been confirmed and even announced in mainstream media. But when we later consulted with the Finance Committee, they told us they were not ready with the report. They had actually not accomplished, they had not finished with the public participation that ended on Wednesday. So they requested for 1 more week so that they finish the public participation on Wednesday and then compile a report, and they suggested that the meeting be held on Monday. But unfortunately, again, Monday was a public holiday. Again, we pushed that very PG to yesterday, on Tuesday. So nothing, there was no pressure from anybody. This imagination that you were pressured through the social media tags or street protests and everything, it's a lie. It was meant to happen that we meet on Tuesday for the committee to present a report based on what they've heard from the public.
To present the report where?
In the PG, before us, to explain to us what they've been able to do. Because this is a process. The proposal came from the executive. All the information, all the talks people have been having in the streets, on social media, they were timely, yes. But we had not aired our views as members of parliament. So it was really wrong for any person to imagine or to insult any member of parliament. Yet they had not seen whether their public participation process had been considered.
Okay.
So it was merely a process, because lawmaking is a process. Now, from tabling the report yesterday and today in the debate and tomorrow on when people will be making the amendment proposals and everything, now you can put your member of parliament to task. Because this is now, at the point you are in, it is at that point that now it is members of parliament that are taking control. Every member of parliament is now taking control of that bill. You have an opportunity to do an amendment. You have an opportunity to text your member of parliament for the proposed amendment by tomorrow 1 p.m. So this thing of imagining that we were under pressure and the president was under pressure for whatever reason, it's a lie. Yesterday was a PG.
Okay, we'll talk specifically more about the accountability issue. But as the chief whip, you do understand that a parliamentary committee's report is a property of the National Assembly. Why would then the chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee present the proposals and what was dropped following the public participation exercise in a parliamentary group meeting before tabling the same report at the National Assembly? And as a chief whip, you do understand the standing orders.
You're very right. This government is a Kenya Kwanza government. And let's start from there. The formation of this government is a Kenya. Besides the president being president, he's also a party leader of a party called UDA. Under the leadership of the party, we also have members of parliament in UDA. They also have an opinion on the running of this government. We usually hold these PG meetings periodically to discuss anything that is of national interest, just like Azimio does. I mean, you even noticed that they had a meeting after we had ours later in the day to also discuss and come up with a party position on this national event, national debate that, talked about the finance bill, national debate. So, because there has been debate and misinformation doing rounds on social media, in the villages, about the finance bill, many people had read the finance bill based on the proposals by the executive. So it was necessary for us, as a family, as the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, to converge and meet together and hear from the Finance committee chairperson on what they've collected from the members of the public. That really doesn't mean that it defined our thinking. It is at that point that we had to discuss and agree, okay, this is what we've adjusted, and this is the reason.
But the point is that
it is the house of debate.
Okay, the point is this, Honorable Silvanus Osoro, and this is as the chief whip, and you clearly understand the standing of orders of the National Assembly. I mean, Honorable Kuria Kimani is the chairperson of the National Planning Committee, Finance and National Planning Committee. He is, yes, a sponsored member by the UDA party, but a neutral entity to the extent of being the chair of that committee, which also embodies other members of other political parties. That was the theatre, the choice of the theatre right in making presentations before a parliamentary group meeting of the Kenya Kwanza in tabling a report that ought to be naturally be a parliamentary property, be done at a parliamentary group meeting. You can have your own PG meeting, but was it right for him to table the findings of the committee before a parliamentary group meeting of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance?
Quite timely, because he actually did not table a report before us.
But he said some of the things that
he highlighted the report to us. And he has an obligation to do that, to us as the members of the coalition.
And the report is parliamentary property.
But the report, he did not table the report in the PG meeting. You know, the report is such a huge document.
Okay.
He didn't table the report. And in fact, if we go by that line, then by now we should actually be in State House still reading that report.
Okay.
What he did, he highlighted sections that he considered controversial and members really were asking on the position, because we must go to the House and debate. And members wanted to be briefed. It was part of the agenda, not the main agenda, though. It was actually part of the agenda. We usually hold periodic. You'll notice that at the opening of this year's session, we had a PG meeting in State House. I mean, just to define our vision for the year. Part of the vision was the finance bill. Then, as mentioned in the first PG meeting that we held. So it was, as I said, this is a culmination of events. It only that it coincides with our program. Okay. You know, the PG program that we usually have every year.
Okay, thank you. And we'll talk more about some of the proposals that were dropped, which were contained in the bill, and the consequences in terms of the budgeting aspect. Dr. Makali Mulu, coming to you. Last time we had this discussion here on Budget Day on Thursday, we talked about taking into consideration the proposals that Kenyans had when they appeared before the committee, and the pledge made by Kuria Kimani then that it will never be about a cosmetic exercise, and that these considerations will be factored in by the committee. In your view, is there a listening ear to the extent of what was yesterday communicated by the chairperson of the committee?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayubu, and good morning, viewers. Before I come to that question, let me just weigh in on some of the issues my colleagues have commented on. And I want to start by really appreciating the young Kenyans who went to the streets to tell the government that we are tired of these taxes. This morning I was looking at some of the video clips, just to analyze the kind of Kenyans who are in the streets. And Ayub, I think Kenya Kwanza government, they might like it or not like it, they need to be sensitive to what Kenyans are saying. We looked at those guys. They didn't have any stone with them. They didn't have any gun or any instrument to harm somebody. They were really smartphones. Very cool, calm as they went around the streets. Actually, the challenges we saw in terms of police attacking them was initiated by the police, it was not them. So, for me, from where I sit, I think it's time we ask ourselves, if Kenyans are saying we don't want taxes, why are we collecting the taxes? We are collecting taxes to serve Kenyans. And they are saying, we have had enough, can we discuss these taxes? Which to me presents an opportunity to the Kenya Kwanza government to explain to Kenyans that if you don't want to pay taxes, these are the consequences of not paying taxes. And then you allow them the choice to say, should we pay or not? Because they can easily tell you, you promise us development projects, we see you cannot implement them with the current tax regime. And since you want to increase your taxes, we are better pushing this development to a future date. We'll understand you as a government. That is not happening. The second point, you put a very good question to the whip. Our standing orders are very clear that in Parliament, a report of a parliamentary committee cannot be discussed outside there before it is tabled in the House. The person who tables a report is the chair of a committee. When you are chair of a parliamentary committee, you are not a chair of a section of that committee, which is Kenya Kwanza. A parliamentary committee has both the minority and the majority. So the chair is actually property of the House. It's no longer a person in terms of the party affiliation. On the basis of that, I think the omission you saw in yesterday at State House was as a result of the panic. I would have understood if Whip is the one who read that statement. I would have understood if the majority leader is the one who read that statement. Or the parliamentary secretary. I don't know whether they have a parliamentary secretary in there. Because a parliamentary grouping normally would have a secretary, somebody who is a spokesperson of that grouping. But in most cases you find that either the party whip or the majority whip, they are also the spokesperson of the party. So when you saw Kimani make that statement there, that was a serious omission. He shouldn't have done that because he had not even tabled the report. And the problem was he was even now getting extracts from the same report he's bringing to the House. You see the challenge. So I agree with what Mukwanja is saying. The issue of a government, which as a result of the mobilization which had been done, was in a panic mood. I can tell you, let us already pretend. Even him, he was already panicking, I was panicking. The kind of calls we got, the kind of SMSs, we couldn't even sleep. That's the truth. We could not sleep. Even my wife was asking me, what is wrong with this finance bill this day? They are calling night, and you know me, I have no problem with picking calls. So I would pick the way I would pick for my normal, my voters who call me. So I would pick, then you hear a voice which I've never heard. I'm a young Kenyan some are pretending to me from my constituency. They're telling me, you have to vote no. If you don't vote no, you're in problems with us. And we are watching you. So you just be open up. So with this situation, Ayub, everybody was in a panic. Now let me come to your question. The issue is to whether they have listened. Let's appreciate as Kenyans that Kenyans presented their petitions to the committee, and to a large extent, a number of them have been picked into the report. If you look at the report, I have the report here, it's a very big report, but I've scanned it through. You realize that if they have listened to the presentation from either Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the public, and they have factored in some of the things. But as to whether that is going to help the country, I don't think so. Because what they have done, and that is not what they're telling Kenyans, they have given us with one hand and taken with the other hand. And from my analysis, I think we are worse off the way it is now than we were before the amendments. Okay, so no serious in terms of even the expunged parts of the proposal in the finance bill that yesterday the chairperson made. So nothing tangible in terms of taking the pressure off the common man's shoulder? Basically, that's the thing. What has happened is, at the end of the day, it's financing gap. So when you look at what they have said we give you as Kenyans in terms of no VAT on bread, all that, and what you look at what they have done now to fill that gap, Kenyans will be worse off. In terms of RIFO effects, it has a worse RIFO effect on Kenyans and most of the low-income Kenyans as compared to us who are sitting on this table. Thank you. Okay, yes, Frank. And we will be unpacking that as well. We'll talk about some of the dropped areas with the...
Just allow me to revisit the views by the majority whip. I think out of professional exuberance, we can forgive him for his economical truth. But the very honest person in the meeting yesterday by the UDA is, in my view, their chair, Governor Barire. And I think that formed the gist of the whole PG. If we agree with what Whip Osoro is trying to tell us here, then where do we place Professor Njuguna Ndung'u? Because we have seen politicians from the ruling party, justifying the tax on bread. Before, we've seen them trying to justify the tax on motor vehicle. We saw the, and the finance bill has a source. If it actually originates from the executive and the politicians in the ruling party want to say, now we are just handling it, it's just arrived on our desk, where are they placing Professor Njuguna Ndung'u? Do they mean that then his ideas and his proposals are thrown out of the window, and therefore, what does it mean for him as the National Treasury? And the changes largely bring in a lot of incoherence in policy. Because when you look at the zero rating of bread, when you look at the motor vehicle tax, when you look at the e-tips issues, there's a lot of amendments to be done so that you can be able to align things. But the fact is there was a level of panic yesterday because Kenyans have been taken for a ride, and yesterday was a real transformation of exactly what public participation means. If last year, these views were taken from stakeholders, were taken from experts, and they were largely ignored. This year, the Finance Committee again held public participation, engaged stakeholders, did even a public engagement at KICC.
Okay.
Over 700 views. Kenyans are simply saying, you cannot be listening for us to just nod. We want you to listen, to understand. And yesterday was the day to drive that point home.
Thank you. And what,
but on that very point,
yes, briefly, we need to go on a break. Come back. We have time
exactly
to discuss further.
that very point.
Yeah.
Let me tell my colleagues that we actually, personally, I did not notice that there was even a street protest. Our meeting in State House ended at about 2 p.m. We were not watching news.
From 7 a.m. in the morning.
We didn't know. We didn't notice. That is why I'm telling you, it wasn't panic. It was, whatever was happening in State House was meant to happen, whether there was street protest or not. Yeah. Our meeting ended at about 2, and we came straight to Parliament. By the way, the roads were very clear from State House. And then midway at Uhuru Highway, there was a lot of traffic, normal traffic, and I didn't notice. In fact, I watched it in the 9 p.m. news on Citizen. So if you guys say that we really panicked, it was out of pressure, and maybe we looked for a pen and ink and tried to change things in State House very, very fast because we've seen streets, those are lies. And it didn't happen.
Okay, because they have, looking at your graph in terms of even you in person, because I'm drawing comparisons between some of your utterances in 2023 and now 2024. And you recall on the 11th of May, during the book launch of the Defense CS, on the eve of the Finance Bill 2023, you told the President and members of the cabinet seated there that whether they like it or not, the Finance Bill will pass. 11 hours ago, in 2024, in regard to the Finance Bill 2024, you have tweeted, we have adjusted the proposed Finance Bill accordingly. Even from where you sit as the Chief Whip, there seems to be a change and a shift in tone. What has prompted this in terms of where you were last year and where you are this year, to justify the points Franklin and Dr. Makali have said of the panic within government regarding the public pressure and the intense criticism of the Finance Bill 2024?
Ayub, leadership is a learning process, and we keep learning. If one presents himself 1 week ago, today, as presented himself 1 week ago, then that person is not really progressive in terms of leadership. The sentiments I said last year, it was at that point, like, it depends on the situation. And I remember you were in that very meeting that I said that. And it was at the point where people said the Finance Bill will fail. And I told them, really, from the position of the whip, I really must give government confidence that as the majority whip, really, we can't lose. It is simply portraying confidence. On this financial year, this bill of 2024, it is true. There was an issue. And true, the issues was about the bread and the cost of living and everything. It also affected my people. When you're proposing taxes on bread, something that my kids wake up to every morning before they go to school. When you impose taxes on vehicles, really, that is not an income generating. It's on the line of income tax. It's not right. So we also have opinions, even as leaders. And that is why we said that time that, okay, we have an issue. We need to sit down and discuss. And the best thing is that Kenyans' views were heard. Okay. Then I said we have considered that from the position of government whip.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that because also the 2023 Finance Bill now and Act equally had proposals which had affected the locals in South Mugirango as they did the Kenyans in...
It's a give and take, Ayub. It's a give and take.
We'll go on a break, come back and proceed with the discussion, frankly, because we have
be
time.
led to go away
Okay,
with some of this.
of course I need to... I have to follow up.
These other things are not favors.
I'll hold him to account.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
need to go to the more
That's when we get back from the break. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are back with Dr. Mulo, Franklin Mukwanja, and Silvana Sosoro after the break on the broadcast. Stay tuned.